Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm going to call this meeting of the Knoxville Knoxville Regional Transportation Planning Organization to order. This is the May 28th, 2025 Executive Board meeting. The first order of business is to take roll and determine a quorum, please.
Good morning. I'm going to call the elected official's name. If you're serving as a proxy, if you'll give your name, please. Mayor Tanya Martin.
Megan Brooks, serving as proxy.
Mayor Tony Akins. Mayor Roland Bradshaw. Mayor Scott Burton.
Larry Gann, serving as proxy.
Troy Ebert.
Troy Ebert here for the governor of Tennessee.
Mayor Terry Frank.
Here.
Mayor Warren Gooch. Mayor Jeff Harris.
Jack Wall, serving as Mayor Harris proxy.
Mayor Glenn Jacobs.
Here.
Mayor India Kincannon.
Here.
Vice Mayor Tommy Smith.
Andrew Roberto here for City Council.
Mayor Ed Mitchell. Commissioner Gina Oster. Commissioner Harold Pittner. Trustee Justin Biggs. Mr. Isaac Thorne.
Here.
Mayor Larry Waters.
James Temple, proxy for Mayor Waters.
Mayor Andy White.
Brian Boone for Mayor Andy White.
Mayor Ron Williams.
Mayor Williams present.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone on Zoom? You see?
We do not have anyone on Zoom today.
Thank you. Any amendments to the agenda, Doug, or anyone else? Nothing? All right. We need a motion to approve the minutes, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And by the way, this is the June 23rd meeting. Sorry about that. I said May 28th. That was the minutes. My apologies. On to the FY 2026-27 Transportation Planning Work Program.
Thank you very much. We've presented this in a couple different drafts to you over the last few months, and today we're kind of here with the final draft, and it needs to be adopted. I wanted to go over a few slides to explain our work program. It is, but the federal government calls it a unified planning work program, but we often call it a transportation work program, just so citizens can better understand exactly what it is. And it's a 2-year work program, and we go by the federal fiscal year. So this will begin October 1 of 2025, and the second year will begin October 1 of 2026. We get a memo from FHWA, FTA, and TDOT that kind of outlines how the work program should be put together and what it needs to include. They kind of do that so they have consistency across the state. All the MPOs submit their work programs at the same time. Our draft has already been reviewed by TDOT and FHWA. It went pretty well. We just had a few minor corrections. And as I said, they require this to be adopted no later than August 29th, and we plan on not having meetings in August, so that's why we need to see if we can adopt this today. One thing we have to consider when we do the work program, there are some federal planning factors, and I went over all these at a previous meeting, so I'm not going to run through them again. But what I did was, there's 10 of them, and I went through those sentences and just kind of cut out what are the key words, and they cover things like economic vitality, global competitiveness, safety and security, accessibility and mobility, the environment, energy conservation, connectivity, efficient, resiliency, travel and tourism, things like that. So our work program needs to try to meet those federal emphasis goals. I'm not going to go over this slide in total, but this just shows you the expectation memo. They ask us to prepare and put our work in these different categories. Next slide, please. So I was just going to go through some of those. We have program administration. This is basically our day-to-day work, how we manage the work program. It allows us to participate in the MPO meetings or go to conferences. One thing we have to do is be sure we always maintain a proactive public engagement process. We have an official outreach plan, and we'll be updating that in the first part of the year. We have to update that periodically. And the best practice is to typically do it after you've completed your mobility plan. So we'll begin to work on that. We maintain our website. And another thing that we have to do is, it'll be a little bit different this time, is the overarching Transportation Act will expire in mid of the work program. So that means we could get new emphasis areas or new priorities. So we'll just have to keep our eye on that. It's always a time where our staff has to do a lot of research to figure out what we need to do to meet those requirements. For data collection, we have a extensive traffic count program. We take the TDOT counts and we do some of our own counts. And you can get on our website and see a lot of these stations across the urban area that we have counts going back 25, 30 years, so you can see the trends. It's very popular with a lot of the developers and realtors and citizens. We're always reviewing data. Not only does the census data continue to put out periodic data over the years, there's a lot of new data sources that are coming out with technology, what they call big data. So we're always reviewing this to see if it can help improve our products. We maintain crash and safety data. You've seen a couple different presentations on that. A requirement by the federal government is that we have a performance measure dashboards. Over the last few months, you have been approving some of the performance measures, and we're going to begin to work on that. We were kind of waiting till the mobility plan was finished and all of our performance measures had been passed, and we're now working on a dashboard and hope to have that in the next few months. We have data and modeling as far as our air quality. And then also under this is our regional pavement program that Craig oversees. We now have 8 jurisdictions that are collecting pavement data, which helps everyone be more efficient in how we decide how to pave our roads. The short-range planning element is typically the stuff that deals with our Transportation Improvement Program, or our TIP. We'll have this on the topic here just in a second. Craig is working on the next TIP, the fiscal year 26 to 29. It'll probably be approved in October. We always have to maintain the TIP. As y'all know, modifications and amendments we're undergoing those and bringing those to you. We prepare a list of obligated projects every year. We monitor the funding balances. And we meet with the jurisdictions periodically to help project delivery, to keep the projects moving. That's very important. And the state's unveiling a new e-TIP, an online TIP, and Craig has been part of a statewide group that's working on getting that and unveiling it. So all the MPOs across the state will have a new online e-TIP, and it should be more efficient and help us do things a lot faster, and then maybe even free Craig up to do some other work and stuff. So it's always a challenge. The long-range plan is, it takes a lot of work with all the funding and projects and the changes and stuff. So the long-range planning section typically involves our mobility plan. As you know, we just passed the mobility plan 2050, but in about 18 months, we'll have to gear up for the 2055. It usually takes us about 2.5 years to get through that process. So that'll be in the second part of the work program. And this time we have a couple of our different, we have a congestion management process and an ITS architecture that we have to periodically update. We did not do that as part of the 2050, so we'll be adding that into the 2055 work. And we'll also be doing a significant update to our travel demand model, which is a key it's a key tool in the mobility plan. And you've heard Mike talk a lot about the household survey. That's a key input into that. So we'll be, once the household survey data is up, we'll be hiring a consultant to help us put that into the model and update it. And Mike has a topic on our agenda today to discuss that a little further. The multimodal section, you will see, besides the TPOe, we have CAT, CAC, and ETHRA working here. Because they receive federal funds, if they're using those for studies or work, they have to be listed in our work program also. Typically in multimodal, we have things like updating our transit asset management plan. There's a transit safety plan requirement that everyone has to update. Title VI, our program of projects. CAT has a couple different projects. They're going to be looking at their lift service, kind of reviewing it and seeing how, if anything needs to be updated. And also with this year's Title VI review for CAT, they have to do a bus survey. That's a requirement by the federal government. Periodically, they have to update their ridership data through a bus survey. We'll be updating our human service transportation coordination plan. We also are listing the 5310, that's the funding where we give vans to like nonprofits and stuff like that. So you'll see both the TPOe and, as you remember last time, we're transitioning that over to CAC. So you'll see them listed in that as part of that also. We also work with any types of plans or projects with sidewalks, bike facilities, and greenways. And then we have a line item in here to help implement complete street strategies. And the federal government will allow us to spend 100% of our planning funds. We don't have to have a match on anything that deals with complete streets. So I have a bucket in the work program of about $200,000. So if any of you jurisdictions need any help with any complete street strategies or have a project that would deal with those type of things, you can bring that project forward and we can see about funding it. The last section is where we have special studies and grant opportunities. This is a lot of times where we're going to be hiring a consultant. I do have a bucket over here. Some people, I'll go through these, have gone ahead and put in a request for a planning study, but if you didn't get in, we have $500,000 set aside in a bucket for the next 2 years if anyone wants to do a planning study. It's 85-15 split. So as a local jurisdiction, you have to come up with 15%. But that money will be there. And from time to time, we do have the jurisdictions come forward and say, hey, something's come up in my community and can you help me with the planning study? But we already have listed in here one for Farragut, Kingston Pike, Campbell Station Road, looking at the Municipal Center Drive area. One for Maryville, the Montville Road planning study. The City of Knoxville, Tazewell Pike Corridor study. We have for the City of Knoxville an alleyway survey and study. And then we're going to continue to work the TPOe through planning with Knox County as far as working on the Unified Development Ordinance and some of your small area plans. We're going to work with the City of Knoxville on their upcoming comp plan. And then I have freight planning efforts here. We don't have a specific project, but we are supposed to do freight planning. And I think we as staff kind of agree it's it's an area where we are a little bit lacking. It's an area that's kind of hard because a lot of the freight data is from private companies and they don't like to share it due to competitiveness. But it is an area we're supposed to be doing work in. So we don't have a particular project, but we're going to sit down and staff and decide, is it just some extra data we need? Should we do like a technical report or possibly a freight study? So once we kind of figure out what we're going to do in that area, we'll be bringing that back to you. If you went through the work program, there was about 100 task lists. I obviously didn't want to go over that, but the budget is about $8 million. It's about 6.7 in federal. Now, not all that's planning funds. There's $1 million in there. That's FTA that, like I said, CAT, CAC, and ETHR have to put projects in here if they're using FTA funds. There's almost $1 million, about $900,000. That's the LSTBG funds that we put in for the pavement management corridor stuff. So, I think one thing that's exciting about this time is we have about an 18-month window before we have to start our long-range plan. So we don't have Craig will have the TIP adopted here in October and November, so there'll be a window there that we can really drill down on some of these extra work that it's hard to do when we're working with a big plan like the mobility plan. So we got some time in here that we can do some other things, which I'm kind of excited about. This is an estimate in the budget because we have some carryover money and our fiscal year ends on September 30th. I had to I used a conservative estimate for what's going to be carried over. So it could change a little up or down, but I think I made a pretty good estimate. So that's kind of an overview. I'll take any questions. Like I said, we do need to go ahead and pass it today. And then we're kind of excited about working on this starting October 1.
I have a question, Doug, concerning freight. How encompassing is that? Is it just tractor trailer trucks? Is it railroad? Is it more than that?
Yeah, the federal regulation, they want us to look at the entire system. They all kind of work together, sometimes if you can get stuff off of your interstate onto barges or rail, that can help lessen the amount of truck traffic. I think Mike's told me before, a lot of the freight is just pass-through freight. We have a couple of hubs here, UPS and stuff like that, but we're supposed to kind of look at the whole full gamut of it. But we've tried this before, and it's a struggle. We've formed freight committees and had different private people on there, but once again, like I said, they weren't willing to share a lot of their information. But it's something that definitely, y'all drive the interstates just like me. There's lots of truck traffic, and it's definitely something that impacts our region.
Have you talked to Amazon about it?
I think the last time we tried this, we didn't have the Amazon present, so they would be something we would definitely want to include in our new analysis.
Anybody else for Doug? Any comments or further discussion?
I recommend approval of the Transportation Planning Work Program.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Doug. On to Craig, you'll be presenting the FY 2026, 2029 Transportation Improvement Program Development Update.
Thanks. That one worked. Try one more. All right. Swap.
All right, is that a little bit better? All right. Okay, wasn't pushing it in. Real quickly, just an update. This is a project, the Transportation Improvement Program, essentially a capital improvement program for the region. We've been working on this call for projects, started in January. You've seen iterations of what are the proposed projects that are going to be in there, and we didn't, resources, constraining resources against what we're actually going to be able to program, different versions of the draft project list as we've gone along, both the local projects as well as TDOT's list. The entire document now has been submitted to TDOT, which is the first part of the review process. That went to them last week. They have 30 business days to review, upon which they'll bring their comments back to us. That then subsequently goes to Federal Highway for review. We also have air quality conformity, kind of those sorts of things. As Doug mentioned, we are hoping to adopt in October. It's kind of a tight timeline for those sequential review process. So October is the target. November is kind of our fallback. The draft document and the associated appendices are available there at that link, which is a whole lot of stuff, and we will share that out to this group as well as the technical committee group after the meeting. We'll get those sent out. A real quick snapshot at the total investments that are in the program, and in your packet there is also a list of the final project lists and groupings that are in there. 32 total projects that are not included in groupings, most of which are local projects, a few TDOT projects in this list. If we've constrained down the 10-year project list, they don't have as many things active in the region. You see the breakdown just in general categories from those local projects, 25 roadway projects, 3 the transit programs that are independently listed, the bike and pedestrian groupings, as well as ITS and some additional transit funding. Those have been consolidated over into the groupings on the right side of the program you'll see there. So we have 4 local groupings and 3 TDOT groupings. As you see, when you break that down, the bike and pedestrian grouping has 15 individual projects that are housed within that a term that Doug mentioned is kind of a bucket. We think of that as a more flexible way to program those dollars. Congestion and clean air grouping, that includes a lot of our signal projects, ITS, some transit funding as well in that grouping. Planning and studies, that's where that pavement management project goes. And then one other small project request from the city of Knoxville, I believe. And then the preservation operations and safety is kind of a placeholder grouping. We don't have any individual projects within that right now. And maybe I'll pause for a moment right there. If there are any questions about that initial bit of information. If not, I will proceed. Real quickly, we've seen fiscal constraint here a number of times. This is for the TPO allocated funds. This board has oversight on assigning to projects. When we look at the overall revenue, the LSTBG program is the most flexible and largest funds, about $121 million worth of projected revenue, expenditures at about 88.3. And again, this is the federal share of those dollars. So we do have a relatively flexible balance. We feel like we wanted to look at kind of a conservative approach to programming with this cycle. We've been very tight in the previous 2 cycles. This may give us an opportunity between that program as well as those dollar figures that we see there. We may be able to have a project call at some point during the cycle, depending on how things deliver and where cost increases go. We do have program reserve amounts that you see there for each of those programs, which is 10% of revenue. So we've got $12 million held back in the LSTBG program. 1.2 in the TAP program, and about $1 million in the carbon reduction program to hopefully accommodate cost overruns on projects. And we actually have, of course, a bit more than those overall reserves, which gives us a great deal of flexibility. Real quickly on the schedule, again, that draft tip was submitted to TDOT last week. They have that 30 business day review. Doug will be working with the interagency air quality consultation group here beginning in, Doug, not Doug, Mike, my apologies. We're trying to redistribute roles around here. Mike's going to be working on that in August, and then our target is to have the revised tip to Federal Highway for their 20-day business day review. September 3rd is where we're shooting at right now. That's kind of if things work as they are for meeting that October adoption deadline. And with that, you would have a technical committee and executive review of the revised draft and a 30-day public comment period starting in September. And again, that adoption in October. The thing to keep in mind, that adoption would generally set up funding to be able to be obligated from that document and it to be the operable document in January of 2026. And if there are questions or comments, I am happy to field them. And this is not an action item, just information today. And again, the draft document will be shared out by Dallas, I'm sure, after later today.
Any questions for Craig? Okay, thank you. Moving on, the TPO travel demand model update scoping overview. Mike will be presenting this.
Yes, is it working now? Okay, all right. Yeah, this is another item just for your information today. As Doug alluded to earlier in the work program, a major effort is going to be an update of our travel demand model. So we're kind of kicking that off now with some initial scoping of that process. Just to give some background of the model, it covers a 10-county area that covers both the Knoxville and Lakeway TPO areas shown on that map there. It's been validated to a 2022 base year, which means that it's kind of replicating the traffic counts out there for 2022. But really, the model was originally developed back in 2009, 2010 for travel behavior from a survey that was conducted in 2008. So really, the expectation is for MPOs of our size to conduct a household survey, which I've talked to you guys about, and update the model about every 10 years or so. So we're a little bit overdue for that. But of course, we did have COVID in 2020, 21 affecting things. So we kind of threw a wrench in that schedule too. So with that update for 2022, we had Caliper, a consultant under contract. And as part of that contract, we had a phase for this visioning and scoping, we called it, for the next update. So we had a 1.5-hour workshop after our technical committee a couple weeks ago. And so this kind of overview of that process. Stepping back a little bit again, just so you guys are familiar with travel demand model, it's a lot that goes into it. This is really, in a nutshell, it's a mathematical representation of travel demand and supply to help us try to plan for the future. These models stem from the 1950s, known as a 4-step model. It's actually 4 separate models chained together. And what this does is allows us to test future scenarios of population growth and those impacts to roadway congestion. So I kind of liken it to a crystal ball where we have roughly 200,000 people coming to the 6 counties of our TPO between now and 2050. So what would happen if 200,000 people showed up tomorrow, and what would our road congestion become? So this kind of shows a sequencing of a typical planning review we do as volume to capacity ratio of a roadway, and red is bad. So you can see roads that are congested now obviously are still congested, and other roads become congested. So it's a tool for the long-range plan, as Doug mentioned before, and other purposes. So some of the key considerations we're looking at for the model update is that we want it to obviously maintain the core uses of it, the mobility plan, needs analysis and project prioritization process. It's the main thing we do for air, and also air quality. It's also used for project level forecasting. It's being used for the big study for West Knox corridor, and also it's a way to, we've talked about a bypass route being proposed, so that's one we can plug that into the model and see what might happen with that. But there's other alternate uses, and people are really expanding on the capability of these models nationwide, more detail. Some things you could look at are some smaller sub-area studies. Traffic operations, I'll turn that on. Some people are doing these types of micro-scale modeling where you can really helps with the visualization of what's happening and for small, individual project designs and see what's happening. Also, non-motorized and transit modes is a big thing. Mainly the model's based on roadway congestion, and that's where it was originally developed for. But you can, if you can't have more granular information and get some bike ped impacts and also transit. Other things like tolling, I know TDOT's looking at choice lanes and so forth, and then autonomous vehicles are coming down the pike, and how do we look at that? Those could have various impacts. So this kind of boils down to the resolution that you put in the model, both at spatially, the zonal level, and roadway network detail. So this adds complexity and cost. There are trade-offs that have to be considered with that. So one more slide of the key considerations, the framework of the model. I won't go into much detail. That 4-step model is original. A lot of larger MPOs are now moving to more detailed modeling called activity-based model. What we do is a hybrid in between that, kind of borrows elements of both types of model platform. The big aspect here is the runtime of the model and the cost and data needs of the model. So there's about a 2 times more effort involved for the full-blown activity-based model. The runtime is a big issue for me. I don't like to push the button and wait all day or multiple days for the model to run and give you an output, because invariably you've coded something incorrectly and realized you've made a mistake and then have to go back and wait another 24 hours. But of course, cost is also a major factor as well. And the big key thing, too, that we want to look at is geographic coverage. I mentioned how we have 10 counties. That was mainly because of air quality issue with ozone that's no longer in play for the Lakeway area. So that adds a lot of work on my end for data needs for that area. Also with Sevier County, it has obviously much different traffic characteristics and the tourist travel that's hard to capture in these models. We do cover the northern part there and Seymour, so we would still keep that in the model, but maybe look at, do we need to still have Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg? Because one other factor there is Sevier County actually has hired a consultant to develop its own model now. So yeah. So we'll be looking at that. But there are trade-offs there, pros and cons. We'll lose that some of those traffic patterns that may be important for the rest of the model. So we'll have to be looking at all that. And then finally, so all this does have various trade-off, and cost and data needs is a big factor, and the model runtime are things we'll be looking at with our consultant. So the consultant did also prepare a survey to start getting some feedback from our technical committee, and we did have 2 elected officials take the survey. So that was it's always good to hear your all's perspective as well. We had a total of 12 responses. Most people had not actually used the model, which is to be expected. I mean, a couple of us, me and then some of our TDOT partners basically use the model. But about a third had a technical background. So I'll just cut a few of the questions here that we asked about. So the importance of prioritizing project needs, should we look at? And it's kind of good for me to see that technical analysis is number 1 on here. Like the projects that have the most merit from a technical perspective should probably be prioritized highest. Elected officials' priorities is number 4 on this list. There's not a huge spread total between the total numbers. Obviously all of these are important and have to be looked at, or go into that project selection process. But ultimately, technical analysis is what we're striving for at the TPO staff level. And then we asked about special studies, importance of these, either sub-area. The sub-area ranked highest. I think a lot of people would like to have ability to use the model for traffic impact studies, or I know the Knox County is doing a lot of stuff with advanced Knox. Some of the smaller areas like Choteau area, northeast Knox County, to delve into detail of what the future land use patterns in those areas will have impact on the roadway system. Transit studies is another big one, followed by the bike ped, and then at the bottom was toll studies. Last of the questions we had, or that I'll talk about here, are the importance of new or other model analyses. Again, it's kind of similar to what I talked about already. The traffic impacts is a high one on this list, and land use scenarios, again, with a advanced Knox. I know the city of Knoxville is looking at a comprehensive plan update. How can we tie that together? Land use and transportation are, as we've always talked about, closely linked together with one another. So then some takeaways from the surveys is, again, everyone's agreement that the technical analysis is important, so that's kind of justifies the use of the modeling, the travel demand model for our process, and then these other additional analyses that we've identified are of importance. And then the people who do use the model, the importance is for shorter run times and more spatial resolution. The traffic zones, I won't get into a lot of detail there, but the problem with the larger traffic analysis zone geographic unit is you lose the fidelity of, again, those bike and ped trips and other things get lost, or kind of all happen within that one unit of geography. So the shorter run times are kind of conflicting with the more detailed resolution. So we'll have to balance that. So in summary, from this scoping effort in the workshop, the consultant's going to be summarizing the findings from that and providing an analysis of these various trade-off pros and cons. A big thing is that they'll also provide ballpark costs for different approaches and data needs associated with that, so that we'll have that information as we move to the actual model update procurement process. As Doug mentioned, a big thing that feeds into this is our household travel survey that's currently underway. It's actually in a hiatus during the summertime. We want to only do the surveys during the normal when school's in session. It got started later than we wanted to in the spring. The original plan was to do it all in the springtime, but it didn't start till after spring break. So they've stopped it, and then we'll resume here in a couple weeks when school gets back in August. We're a little bit behind where we wanted to be on the sampling on that, so we may be pushing out a lot more public information and press releases, that kind of thing. Any help you guys can provide us in getting the word out about this, so that when people get the letter in the mail, they don't just toss it away. The importance is trying to get them just to open the envelope and take the survey. So as you know, everybody is very busy now, so it's hard to get people to participate in these type of things. But we have 1,000 recruited so far, and we need to get 3,000, so there's going to be a big ramp up to get that, hopefully, to cross the finish line this fall. And then, as we mentioned, after all that, we'll issue a request for proposal to get a consultant on board to do the actual model update. So try to boil down about 100 slides from the workshop into a few as possible here. But if there are any questions for now, I can try to answer.
I have a question. Yeah, I was wondering, just can you remind us, it's a random survey for the household, so we can help. How exactly can we help getting people to, it's not like we can say, hey, Joe Smith wants to do it, it's random, so what can we do to help?
Yeah, that's a great question, because a lot of our surveys, we're begging people to take them and just say, hey, go take our survey. But this one, we're only wanting the people that actually get the letter in the mail to take the survey, so that it's a scientifically random sample. Yeah. So the best way I could say is that, some people will have questions about its legitimacy or things like that, and say, hey, is this really legit? We do have an incentive in there. It's relatively small. It's like $10 per person in the household, but we're hoping that will entice enough people, or help entice people to take the survey. So, but yeah, maybe have a little link on your website, or if we
have you all done? Sometimes just a little video of someone getting this thing in the mail, what is this? And then have you done something like that? Maybe you haven't. I should know that, but maybe you need to if you want to re-up that when it comes time to you're mailing out more.
Yeah, Yeah, we have a video that and some links on our website. Of course,
Okay.
a lot of people don't, know exactly what TPO. One thing that we were able to get University of Tennessee Center for Transportation Research to act as a sponsor, as a more recognizable entity. So their logo is on there as well. And so we hope that that gets people to also look at it. But
Well,
yeah.
if you resend those links to us and then say, please send this out on this date, or what, like, there's no point in
Right.
amplifying the message when it's on pause right now, but
Yeah.
when it's time, send it out to the members of this board and we'll
Okay.
get it out. Maybe it might help.
Yeah.
One other question I had is, as far as like the air quality attainment
Yeah.
matters, did this study, or does it take into account, I know it's still a tiny number of motorists who use EVs, but it is bigger than it's ever been before in the history of motorized vehicles. So is that, part of the, thinking through and modeling and planning, just EV infrastructure, EV's impact on, air quality? Because you had autonomous vehicles in there, but not
Yeah.
EVs. Like, EVs are already here.
Right.
Autonomous, not so much.
Yeah, I was from the travel demand model perspective. An EV behaves the same way as a traditional motorized vehicle would, as far as the impact of traffic on our roadway. But
not as far as emissions.
right, the emissions is kind of handled separately. When we do the air quality conformity, we get the outputs from the travel demand model, and then those go into a separate model from EPA. And in the EPA model, it bakes in what expected fleet turnover will be in the future based on the current emission standards and tailpipe and vehicle standards. Some of that is in flux right now. I'll mention, the EV mandates and things are being rolled back. So we're not real sure if those have to be changed in the EPA model or not. But for right now, it does show up in there in the future, much lower emissions from motor vehicles because of those aspects with more EVs. So whether, there are some assumptions that go into that. But
I had a question. I wasn't able to attend the workshop, but there was some discussion about delivery trucks and freight kind of being signalized out during this. Is that what was the outcome of that? Thanks.
yeah, the freight came up a lot. It's one aspect of that is the trucks being on roads they shouldn't be on. Town of Farragut. Mayor Williams was attending, able to attend our workshop, so we were happy to have him there. And he brought up the issue in Farragut of tractor trailers sometimes bypassing the scales or just congestion on interstate and taking Kingston Pike. So that's one aspect we discussed, and you can program in the model prohibitions on roads if you don't want trucks there and see what that does. But the delivery vehicles is something that is a relatively new phenomenon, not in the current model very well, but it would have to be accounted for. So that's where we may reach out to folks like the Amazon and get more information from them, because that is something that's a major factor now.
A lot of Amazon, what they use is Bright Drop.
What's Bright Drop?
Bright Drop brand, which is a GM vehicle, but it's electric.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen these kind of funky looking vans driving around now, yeah.
Yeah, the weird lights. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're aware of we're all talked about here and then in multiple other areas, the impact of people moving here, which we've seen and you referenced in the report. And certainly that drives a lot of the discussion that we're having about, how do you develop, what is the traffic pattern going to look like? But another one that I'm really glad that you mentioned in this report was the autonomous vehicle piece. Mm-hmm. And I know we've all talked about that kind of offline about, what that impact looks like. We've already seen communities where these vehicles are operating. I was mentioning earlier that I just saw a report where there was a small bus that was autonomous. So we're talking about driverless vehicles, computer driving the vehicle. So we're seeing more and more of that. And as technology continues to ramp up, we're obviously going to see that happen. So I guess my question is, as you're putting this all together, what are we thinking ahead about? Clearly, this is going to be something that happens in our community at some point, and it's probably sooner than we might expect. So what are we doing to lay the foundations for how that rolls out? How is it going to be, safely implemented? Are we having those discussions now? Is the groundwork being laid for this not being a surprise, and here it is, we weren't ready for this? Because, we can all see that it's coming.
Yeah, that a lot of questions, and I'm not sure, we haven't really taken a hard look at it at our level. I don't know if the state of TDOT, if anyone's approached them about trying to operate any of the cities in Tennessee. I think it's moving, started in San Francisco and now some Austin and maybe Atlanta even. There's a lot of unknowns about the long-term future of these. There was initial hope that these would reduce traffic impacts and they can platoon a lot better, closer together and add more capacity to the road. But then again, you'll have like these ghost vehicles just driving around kind of searching for parking spaces or the next rider. So I think there's a lot to be, we can find out from the other cities maybe that are where they are being deployed, but it's still kind of too early. I don't know if Matt has anything.
Nashville, I see a lot of Waymo vehicles in Nashville.
Are they driverless now?
No, not yet.
Okay.
They're, I guess, mapping the routes and making sure that whatever they're using to keep the vehicle in that lane is substantial enough to do it alone. But I don't think they've talked to us about it. It's usually with the city in that coordination, even though it's on state routes or anything.
So maybe it's a little bit like the scooters. They just kind of popped up in areas, unbeknownst. But I know the city took a more slower approach to that and did some pilot things. And it's hard to remember exactly now, but maybe it's an approach like that would work for the autonomous vehicles and kind of regulate that. I know there's some other federal regulatory things still going on at the National Highway Traffic Safety, but yeah.
Considering that, it might be a good idea to have staff start looking into this and talk to TDOT about other areas, because I wasn't aware this was already happening in Nashville. So it's not long from showing up. Maybe it would be a good idea to start putting that together so that when cities do get approached, there's a resource to go talk to about, hey, this is best practices. These are the things that we're seeing that are happening, because clearly this is going to happen. And like you said, it could impact traffic patterns. It also could impact the way we park. Depending on how this thing rolls out and how we are developing now, because when you start talking about your development plans today, it's going to be years before those things actually happen. And if you're planning for one thing, but the traffic patterns are going to change and parking patterns are going to change because of this technology, then we really need to start having that information. So it might be helpful to have that as a resource. Thank you.
Just one thing to kind of add to where the services is existing now is that it's in areas where there are no seasons. I think what worries me a little bit is when pavement is covered by snow, they don't know where to look, So I think we've got a longer way to go before this becomes something in Nashville. But this is again, something to discuss at a state level. But we're not the lead on these either. These are the private companies that kind of determine that, and whether or not the cities are I think they're the next level of that type of authorization. But
Jack, did you have something, please?
Yeah, my concern is more about the funding side of that. Those vehicles are not paying gas tax. They're not putting into our road network. How are we going to capture those dollars? If cities allow those to come in, is there going to be a way to capture them monetarily, money to put back into the road network? That's how all the roads are funded, is gas tax. So how are we dealing with that?
You saying the autonomous vehicles?
Yes.
Or you're talking more about the electric vehicles, right?
Both.
Well, there is a way to capture an equivalent gas tax, and that's through the registrations.
But
So-
this is not dealing with autonomous, I mean, like
Well-
delivery trucks, for example. I mean, you've got a lot of these electric delivery trucks going around every neighborhood. I mean, there's one in I get an Amazon box every day, I'm sure everybody at this table does, right? So the question becomes, these vehicles aren't, where's that equitable kind of distribution of
Yeah,
funding?
they do currently. We have Tesla, and electric vehicles have a $100 surcharge, I believe, on your registration. Hybrids have a 50. Thing is that, that can just go up. I understand what you're saying.
It
for
is
sure.
indexed.
I know.
Yeah, that can go up.
It is indexed too.
I just hope that we're looking at it long-term and not just a
Also,
one-time shot.
some states have, tried to capture the wear and tear on our roads based on the actual damage and wear that a 18-wheeler does versus a Prius. I mean, Prius maybe not accruing a lot of gas tax, but they also weigh a lot less and don't do as much wear and tear. So, if we want to encourage the state to really capture the wear and tear to our roadways, then it needs to be like the weight of a vehicle. And I know that's a whole kettle of fish that, people don't want to get into, but that's, the reality is that lighter the vehicle, the less wear and tear.
Yeah,
Just
and
doing
I'm-
real quick, sorry, Mayor, but on the flip side of that, your Prius is a hybrid, Prius hybrid, correct?
Yes.
But a pure battery-powered EV is about 50% more heavy than a internal combustion engine. So yeah, you kind of have a double whammy where you're not collecting the gas tax, and then they cause, which is also going to have an impact on structural parking as more and more people go to electric vehicles. Is structural parking is not engineered for the weight of mass electric vehicles. So there's a lot to this that's still out there beyond even what City Councilman Berto was talking about there. So it is quite a bit to consider.
Yeah, I would just say like this whole modeling in the future, I'll be surprised if it actually is like this in the future, because I think there's so many things that are changing. There's a lot of people in the younger generation who seem more keen to drive less and have more opportunities to get around through transit and walking and rideshare, e-bikes. I mean, e-bikes in some communities, not Knoxville, but are a growing way to move around cities or anyhow, things are changing fast. The population here, when I took office in Knoxville, was 186. Now we just are crossed over 200,000. And so in 5-6 years, the city of Knoxville's grown over 15,000 people. And that's happening in all, our whole region. So people don't like congestion, so they find ways to deal with it. And sometimes that means changing land use patterns, work from home, all these things. So this future planning is it's a bit of a crapshoot, and I think we need to do it. But I think some of the assumptions that this plan has are going to be changing faster than we can keep up with.
Yeah, we don't try to I show the map for 2050, but we don't try to pretend that we know what it's going to be in 2050. That's one reason we update our long-range plan every 4 years as well. So hopefully keeping up with things a little bit.
No doubt technology is wonderful, but it's also disruptive at the same time.
Y'all know Mike and I have been here forever. And we used to say 4 years, nothing changed in 4 years. So why are we keeping on these plans? But I think now things are going to be changing a lot faster or whatever. So.
Well, if we look at you look at land use and you look at what's going on with the Advanced Knox plan, I think that is a good avenue right there to start talking about what needs to happen. And I know it's probably near and dear to Glenn on what's going on with it, but I think that right there will be the foundation for what we've got to happen in our county anyway. That's my opinion.
Jack, we kind of, and Mayor Jacobs, you can probably tell more about it than us. In 2018, we were looking at this with the autonomous buses, and we just had a hard time even figuring out how to title the dang thing and get a tag on it, because all those to use a vehicle on a on the public roadway, it has to be registered and titled, and that's something that our legislatures and our leaders are going to have to deal with. Because I mean, you went through the
Yeah, we had a company here called Local Motors, and they had a prototype, and we were even. Yeah, the Ollie. At one point, we were considering using it as a shuttle at the new stadium downtown. And yeah, it was just completely different, and we had to work with the state to just get it registered and titled correctly. So yeah, there's quite a bit of stuff here, and even beyond just the planning aspect of it, that these new technologies are going to bring to bear.
I don't have anything else. Thank you.
That was a good discussion about the future, uncertainty.
Yeah.
All right, on to any updates from TDOT and Federal Highway, please.
A couple quick updates from TDOT as far as staffing changes, as hopefully you all have heard. But Mr. Borden, Steve Borden from Region 1, he has retired. And he's the third generation Borden that has worked for TDOT. And we've had one in TDOT forever because he was with his dad working out here. And as a kid and grew up and came up through TDOT. So his whole life has been involved with that. So that's the bad news. The good news of it, if you happen to have his cell phone number, he's not going far away and he's keeping his number. So you can still call and ask him questions. And he said, that's okay. And I don't know, right now I don't have any idea what we're doing as far as his replacement at this point. I know currently Ms. Snowden is taking over and signing the permits and a few things that Steve used to do all on the operations side. Dexter and Christy are still working, in their current roles, and we're still moving forward. But as far as official replacement as of this point, I haven't heard anything yet. The other one is, our deputy governor has stepped down as our TDOT commissioner, and our chief engineer, Will Reed, has stepped into that position. Again, I have not heard of any of his replacement as far as the chief engineer position. Preston is still in place, and then our CFO is also, he's been transitioning out for a while. They named someone in that seat.
Yeah. We've had Joe Galbato's replacement, Natalie Bergeron. She's from the Nevada DOT, but she's been with TDOT for about 3 months now. Yeah. So Joe is teaching her the ways of TDOT before he departs, and I think his departure date is sometime in
this fall.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it's August, but August might be on my mind because of SPP, so I don't remember. But
so, and y'all don't really deal with Joe as much as we do. He's, he makes sure that we have cars and everything's paid for, and we run through that. So, one more thing, and I'll turn it back over to him because it was a good segue to the SPP. Our planning grants. We talked about the studies that we're looking at here through the work program. TDOT is opening up their studies again this late summer, so be on the lookout for the planning grant options. So last year, Sevier County went through and we studied their roadways and for a pavement condition plan. That was an example of one. Alcoa, we did one there looking at, the road between running the corridor study, basically is what we looked at. Running down to Maryville. There's a lot of different good options for those. So if you have something else in addition to what the MPO is doing, this is just a supplement to help support that as well. Be on the lookout for those. We've done Anderson County. We did big plans up there. I mean, we've done a lot of really good work with these. And we've seen a lot of projects come through because of these, and a lot of them have been funded. So we're really happy with those, and we want to continue to support those. And of course, with that, the state partnership program, which has been going on for a couple of years now. It is now open. It closes at the end of August. And Matt's here if you have any specific questions on it, but it's going to be the same thing that we've done in the past. The application's there. The MPOs have the application. They can help you with that. Really need to work with the MPOs if you're looking at wanting to do one of these projects. But this will help push forward some of our programs, and we have Knox County, Knoxville, we've been very successful with getting projects into the 10-year plan through the SPP process. So kudos to y'all, very good job. And if there's other projects that we want to see in the other jurisdictions, big, small, Sevier County, I mean, y'all knocked it out of the park with some of these things as well. I mean, you got a couple really good projects coming in that were going to be needed. But it's that tourist side related versus the daily grind that we deal with here. So we still have a long way to go, but we're making great progress here. So, that is extremely encouraging. You have a very, very talented MPO staff. And I would highly encourage you all to continue to use them. Anything you want to add on to that, Matt?
Well, I guess I'll play the part of Federal Highway today and provide some updates from some memos recently that we've received. One is a memo. I think this isn't going to be any surprise. Let me make sure I have the right letter open here. But this was sent to all the MPO coordinators too, but it's the memo from the USDOT discussing that they are officially no longer enforcing items like equity, it's equity, climate, greenhouse gas emissions, racial equity, gender identity, diversity, equity, inclusion. It was just a formal letter that came to us on July 2nd. And Doug, I think you were on that list. Hopefully that you were. I'm just making sure that you were. Because it went to every, I don't see you on here.
I got it some way.
You are.
If it didn't come from you, it came.
No, I see you now. So yeah, this, again, I just wanted to just sort of mention that. Again, it's probably no shock to anybody that this letter is making those things officially identified. The other Federal Highway letter that we received is a memo, and Mike and I had a conversation about it before the meeting, referring to this Safe Roads Initiative. And believe it or not, Safe Roads is an acronym, and that stands for, are you ready for this? Safe arterials for everyone through reliable operations and distraction-reducing strategies. So they did not doge the person making acronyms at this point, or maybe they did, I'm not sure. But this is basically, I was going to read one of the paragraphs that came from the memo, and it's a fairly short memo, maybe 4 paragraphs long, but it says, we're getting back to the basics. This is from Secretary Duffy. Using data to guide decision-making and prioritize investments that reduce distraction while improving mobility and safety for all road users. So it says, and the reason why I'm bringing it up, within 60 days, and this was July 1st, I request that your state DOT, in coordination with your metropolitan planning organizations, use available safety data, analysis, and assessments to develop a list of arterial segments, including intersections with the highest safety, operational, or compliance concerns that will be addressed by the end of fiscal 26. And that says to please submit our list to the Federal Highway Division office. So one thing that we were curious about was what being addressed what meant. It was something that sort of confused us, and we didn't really know what to say regarding that to the MPOs. What I think we've determined through some conversations that senior leadership has had with Federal Highway is we're basically going to provide them with the list that's identified in the Highway Safety Improvement Program. It is broken down by areas of the state, and I think it's a way of trying to give them something that is already on the books. Again, addressed by fiscal 26 is a quick turnaround, so it's something that it's not supposed to include ideas of things moving forward. So we thought the easiest way to satisfy what they're asking is to provide the highway safety. I'm going to put a memo together and send it out to the MPOs that sort of breaks down the items in the HSIP for those particular areas, just so you have an idea of what's going forth. But it's also a way of you providing input on what you see and making sure that things like maybe the SS4A projects or stuff that may not be accounted for in that HSIP are recognized or identified. Because again, Mike, you've learned a little bit more than I did about what you think the initiative is or the purpose of this is. But
it's not spelled out in the letter, but I've seen secondary information both from Federal Highway and other avenues in the media. But my understanding of this is specifically targeting where people have put art in the roadways and painted crosswalks. There's, rainbow crosswalks and other things and political messaging that these are what is being targeted specifically with this, this thing. So, but until we hear exactly from Federal Highway, I guess.
Right. I haven't heard any of that, so, I mean, it makes sense, I think, based on what we've heard recently about some of these initiatives, so I just wanted to keep you up to date on where we're at with that, and like I said, I'll get this memo out. We have about a month to go to get that out, so there really isn't a lot of action we're gonna need from you other than to review the document and say, good to go. That's it for me.
Anything else?
Nope, are you ready for other business?
Yes, sir.
Okay, like I said, we're not going to have a technical committee and executive board in August. There's a TDOT and all the MPOs across the state have a conference, and it's the week of our technical committee, so that's why we're hoping not to have in August. We're going to be all there together, working together. So the next time we will meet, the tech committee will be on September 9th, and then the executive board on September 24th. That's all I have under other business.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. At this point, members of the public may address the executive board with a 5-minute time limit for each person. Would anybody like to take advantage of that? Okay, seeing no one. Unless there is an objection, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.